teacher researcher, and that's right in the middle of this curriculum. But I love this, and I use it in lots of things. It is the teacher who, in the end, will change the world of the school by understanding it. It's not going to be any expert at a university, out of this, out of that. It's going to be teachers who change. Lawrence Stenhouse. And there's another fellow from a very different perspective who was actually a psychologist, and he studied human development, and he wrote a wonderful little book in 1953 called, it was about children and students, and it was called In Search of Self, and how young children are just in search of who they are, trying to build who they are. And it's a wonderful book. Then he wrote this other book called, the title of it is When Teachers Face Themselves. And what he was saying in that book is that if teachers begin to study who they are as people, their own development, that they will learn much that will help children. Because until we realize what we're doing, sometimes we do things in our classrooms that may not be in the best interest of our children. So it's another skinny little book that has really powerful. If you look at the date, 1956. Then Dan C. Morty, he is a sociologist, and what he was saying in this book, and the book is called School Teacher. That's just the title of it. And it came out in 1975, the same year as Lawrence Stenhouse. And in that book, he said, in order for teaching to be a profession, teachers need to begin to take themselves into consideration. When we think about teaching and learning, we have to think about our own perspectives and what we bring to the classroom. So he was, in a way, saying some of the things that Arthur Gerson was saying. But he also said the biggest impediment for teachers are the rules and regulations and the isolation of teachers. That teachers need to be more of a community. He didn't use that word. But we need to be together. We need to be networking. And when he wrote this in 1975, we didn't have the computers and the abilities that we do now to network. But those two things, he said, we need to take ourselves into account, conditions of practice. And then Donald Schoen, there's a man giving a presentation here at this Beaconhouse conference on Donald Schoen. How many of you are familiar with him? Okay, but what he's saying is a wonderful little book, and he talks about teachers and several other professionals, and he says, teachers think in action. We can't just hold them still and say, okay, this is thinking, but we learn by doing. That teachers learn by doing.
That's basically on the evaluation model for teaching, teachers teaching it, students learning.
Yes, yes, very, very important contribution to the learning. And then the last one, Elliot Eisner is a curriculum person at Stanford University. He comes from the arts, his background's in the arts. And this lovely little book called The Educational Imagination. I love the title of it. It's all about curriculum and school programs. And he says in that book, school must be a growth environment for the teacher if it is to be an optimal growth environment for the student. And he came out with the idea of educational connoisseurs and educational critics. What do you think of when you think of a connoisseur?
Connoisseur?
Expert?
Someone who enjoys. I mean, a food connoisseur.
Okay.
Yeah, and somebody who enjoys teaching and education and revels in it.
Right. Somebody who enjoys and looks beyond the surface things. So if you think of teachers being connoisseurs, it's being able to understand what's happening. And the critic part is being able to share that with other people. So that we have to, as teachers, we have to be both. We have to not only see things more clearly and understand what share it in such a way that parents and others can understand what we're seeing. And a lot of I was in a couple of sessions this morning, and people were talking about parents having such different expectations for children and wanting things. Eisner would say that what we need to do is help them see their children differently. To see that those, and the arts would be a prime example of this, to watch a child's scribbles and look at this over time and be able to see what's happening to the child, what's happening to the child's language, even though they may not want to test through X, Y, and Z to be able to see growth and change in the child. Okay, some of the two forms of inquiry for teachers. Action research. Are you familiar with action research?
Action research basically this, we did this in our FTL studies. In action research we just come up with a situation and then we try to correct that situation. We devise some strategy. Before intervening, we take notes of that situation, we implications, the results, and then we intervene with some strategy, with some workshop to correct that very situation. And then after intervention, when we come out of that situation and we find the gaps, are they minimized, are they same? So this study is called basically action research. When on a small scale, individual or in the bigger scale, classroom level, the student level, on as bigger adults level, we identify some area and then we try to meet the gaps between the desired standards and the current situation, I think so. Is it so?
Yes, absolutely. In a way, if you think about your aspirations, what are your aspirations and what are you doing? And it's trying to figure out, how do I get, I say I want to do this, and yet I look in the classroom and it's not happening. What could I do? What could be a couple of steps I could take? So you try them out. And you document what you do so you learn from it, and you share that with other people. Say, I tried this, I just can't figure it out. You talk with other people, get some other ideas, and try different things out. It is absolutely experiential learning with the intent to learn from it and document it. Yes. You can see how this fits with teacher-researcher, because what you're doing is you're systematically looking at something. We're teachers, we do it every day. We're always trying things out. But when you talk about action research, you're actually documenting it so you can see the differences. Lawrence Stenhouse, again, was a very good proponent of this, as is John Eliot. And there's a wonderful network that John Eliot began. John Eliot is in England at the University of East Anglia and quite well known for action research. But there's a collaborative action research network that you can be part of, and they have marvelous conferences, but they have a web presence, and you can be part of the conversation of other people all over the world who are doing action research. In the learning communities, there's just a few resources there. All right. I want us to have about 2 more hours. So I'm thinking of our that time constraints, exactly. Let's look at these together. What is a learning community? What, based on what we've done so far here, I think we've got some of the characteristics. What have we said? Let's kind of yell it out. Group of people, common objective. Okay, working to improve their practices. Yes. And cooperating.
Where is opportunity for everyone to learn?
Accepting other people's points of view. In fact, encouraging diversity of point of view. Wanting people to have different points of view.
Where there is opportunity for everyone to learn.
absolutely essential in a learning community. Everybody has to learn. It's for everybody. Yes.
Sharing, extending, and transforming existing ideas.
Okay. Sharing, forming, extending.
Sharing, transforming, and extending.
Transforming and extending ideas. Yes.
People get together to share the learning and then to earn some bits of that learning, to unlearn them, and then learn many
Okay.
from the shared experiences.
Okay. So you come in and some misconceptions and that's part of what the learning community does. It's a place to test out ideas. That's where the action research comes in. And you can flop. You can absolutely fail, but you've got a group of people that you can talk with about it.
And you fail to learn.
Yes, and you come to learn new. Yes.
And just not to limit yourself on reflection on action, but reflection in action too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The reflection, essential part of that. Think about, when we actually started out with this, thinking about learning communities that you've been part of. If you look back, looking at it very broadly, is there anyone who doesn't think they've been in a learning community? I think we all have been. Yes? Have you ever been in one? Somebody who remembers a learning community, what were the aspirations of the learning community you were in?
To reach a particular, the one that I came on me.
Go ahead. You can go first and then he'll go.
The one that I remember, sort of incorporates everyone learning from each other, is we had a fledgling debating society when I joined my school as a teacher. And since I had been a debater myself, one of the members was my brother. So he sort of pushed me into it, sort of begging me, pleading me, we'll buy you an ice cream, we'll take you for a Sunday. It wasn't part of my job requirement, but stay after school, listen to us. Then they would go on YouTube and find World Schools Debating Society's previous sessions and show them to us and then say, okay, now sit down and tell us what we're doing wrong. And they'd, nitpick at each other as well. And through that I realized that, and luckily within a year's time they won the National Debating Championship also. It got into the national team. But that was the one particular area where I didn't have the expertise